All right. Well, we are in. Is this Madison, or is this
You're technically in Madison.
technically in Madison by like not much, right?
Right. Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So we are here with Matthew Danky of El Grito, and this is episode 2 of Collaborate Forever. So
Yeah.
thank you for
Pleasure.
having us out here. This is an incredible spot. I said when we rolled in that it was like a kind of like just this little crazy tuck away from Madison. I mean, I live 10 minutes away and I'm in the town. And here we are. Like you said, we could be anywhere in Wisconsin right now.
A little piece of quiet out here.
It's gorgeous. And we framed our setting today in front of your garden. Okay, can you walk us through this, the name of it in particular?
Well, we call this the Scrumby Garden, but we just got all sorts of funny names for our gardens because why not name your garden, basically? We like to name everything, There's no reason to, but we do it. But yeah, gardening's a passion, It's something that's, it's something that it makes the summer even more enjoyable too. We get to plan meals around this. What we're eating tonight is going to come from there a little bit later.
It's wonderful. So
it is. It's great. I love it.
So I mean, you tap into this quite often for meals at home.
Yeah, definitely. Oh yeah, this is like, again, the best things just come out of the garden, 10, 15 minutes, you put them under some cold water, you eat them, or you cook them up in a stir fry or something like that. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It keeps cooking interesting, which is like, if you do it for a living, you also want to be inspired by it too.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I have been a customer for years. Love your truck.
Yeah, cool.
And I'm excited to talk to you because I know just some fragments
totally.
about you. I know that you're from Stoughton.
Yep. It's a bedroom community to Madison now, but when I was a kid, it was more of an independent little place. But I'm actually just from south of there in a place called Cooksville, Wisconsin. So even if we're just being even more detailed, but out in the country, I was raised out there.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So farm?
Yep. Farm, not a functioning one, but it had chickens and a big garden and stuff like that. Yeah.
I know that you worked at L'Etoile?
Yeah, did.
Early on, though, correct?
Yeah, wow, that's great that you know that, yeah.
Okay, I think I read an article somewhere about it.
Cool.
But, true story, huh?
True story, yeah. I
L'Etoile.
got hired when I was 14.
Whoa.
Couldn't even drive there. My parents actually are the greatest parents ever, and they drove me for the first year before I got my license.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So I started up rolling pastries and doing dishes and then cleaning the restaurant on weekends as well. So I did those things for pretty much all through high school and into college. Worked there with Odessa Piper, who has been a major inspiration for me. Again, it depends on your age group, I think, nowadays to know who she is. But, she's certainly somebody who's really important to how I think about food and what I like to eat as well. L'Etoile was certainly one of those first experiences fine dining wise. I was like, wow, this is really good food. But yeah, so anyway, I had that opportunity to work there for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, I worked at Cafe Momar as well. R.I.P. that place.
Love Momar.
Yeah. We, that was fun too. And then I actually had a little restaurant when I lived abroad in Argentina. I ran a restaurant on my house, so it was called a Puerta Cerrada, but it means closed door in Spanish. But basically, after the crisis in 2001, restaurants became so expensive, people started doing them in their homes. And so I did kind of an Asian-inspired menu there, but mixed with Argentinian asado culture. So doing everything on the grill, but doing maybe things with bulgogi marinade or Thai-influenced coconut soup, fish balls, all kinds of stuff.
But you were also an English teacher? Was that involved with your travels, or that whole different story?
Basically, that was...
that was your travel.
That was the travel. In 2005, I graduated from college, and I had a friend of mine who was living in Thailand at the time. I knew I had already tried to apply to teach English in Japan. They had denied me. So I was like, okay, well, I'll go to Thailand. So I went to Thailand, to Chiang Mai, and taught there for 8 months, and then spent 4 months traveling, and then I came back to the States. And then ended up moving to... that's when I worked at Momar. I'm having to remember my own timeline. But yeah, that was the first time teaching English abroad and living in Thailand. It just kind of blew my mind and made me have a taste for it. So I came back to the States, worked at Momar for a little bit, and then went to Argentina.
Okay.
That was the timeline.
Sure.
But yeah, English teaching was the way to pay for all that. I can't tell anyone it's going to be a career to turn you into Bill Gates or something like that. But boy, is it going to help you pay the bills and have an experience where you're not a tourist. That completely changes things when you're somebody working in a society, or, again, you're there long term for a different purpose than just tourism.
Right.
So.
And you're, I'm assuming, in neighborhoods,
Yep.
really getting a feel for...
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Thailand, Argentina, anywhere else?
Yeah, Taiwan as well, and Vietnam.
Wow.
Yep. Lived in all those places. Lived in Vietnam for about 2.5 years. Lived in Taiwan for a year. And then I lived in Argentina for a year in 2007, and then I went back some years later and lived there for another almost 3.5. So it almost turned into 4. Deeply love Argentina.
Do you?
Yeah, very much so.
What about it? I mean, it's radically different from Asia.
Yeah. Again, maybe it's because of the difficulties they've had with their economy or whatever, but it reflects in the way that they think about their lifestyle, and they enjoy the moment, good family, good friends, good drink. I love that people eat late. I love that work is a secondary thought, coming from Wisconsin, which is such a work-oriented place. I think all that kind of stuff it's refreshing, so maybe you idealize it, and you can eat well and drink well for, it used to be for cheap, it's a different story now. But when I was going down there, it was, $15 big steaks, and great Malbec wine for $10 a pop, and things that would cost 3 or 4 times that in the States. So, Argentina just touched my heart in a lot of ways. So,
have you been back?
Haven't been back in a while, about 7 years. So, but maybe in the future. Sure. I don't know.
Circling back to your previous food industry experience, and then throughout your travels, is there a connection at all there? Because certainly the seed was, I mean, you were interested in it early on,
yeah,
correct?
Right.
And during the period where you're traveling extensively, were you at all influenced with cuisine, or was that sort of, were you not really dialed into it at that point?
No, always have been. Always been a avid home cook, always been somebody who loved food from the get-go. I think about some of those first times when I was in my 20s traveling, and I wasn't like, oh, I want to cook professionally or do any of those kind of things. But, when you were asking me this question, it makes me think about, like, when you make music or something like that, sometimes you have to take a break from just making things and just listen, absorb stuff. I kind of think of those years as absorption, and again, they just get stored in the memory banks, and your subconscious takes hold later on. They weren't explicit at those times, but there was always a thing. I have a memory of driving around Chiang Mai, Thailand, again, first time in Asia, Southeast Asia, on my motorbike. My evening would be spent going to 3 or 4 different restaurants. I'd go one place to get the Thai red curry, then I go to the place to get the satay, then I go to the place to get the papaya salad, and then I go to the place to get mango and sticky rice. And they were 4 separate people. It took a little while to go to all these places, but it's all worth it. So the food was always worth it even back then. It's only become more of that now as I've gotten older. It's more obsessive, I'm thinking.
Does any of the way your food experiences abroad, did that sort of kind of pique any interest of how you do things now, as far as like, for example, I think one of the things that I'm appealed to your service is that it's lean and mean, but it's always sort of changing. I guess that's like, for me, that's how, like, my personal life is, to keep things like really lean, but also constantly changing. I don't want to call your cart Spartan, but it's just like, it's perfect because it's just the right amount of food. It's served the right way. Subtle changes, but it's all on brand.
Sure.
So where did that come from? Is that just sort of how you were, or have you just kind of picked up little things along the way and you're like, I like the way that
Again, I think if I looked back at things that we did in the early stages, I'm putting a lot of other things on a taco. As I've done this more throughout the years, I've realized that it's about just taking things away. And again, like, do the meats right, and then, a couple of things on top is all you really need. I have a tendency to go too hard. Again, it's like making music or painting or something like that. If you add too many colors, it becomes one color. If you put too many things into a song, it becomes monochromatic. That can happen with food too. And so I only with age and time doing El Grito as a business full time has it allowed me to like say, what can I take away and then maintain its credibility and still make it taste great. Execution, like, again, are you doing it correctly? Like, if you've cut the corners before it gets to that place, then, it's not going to taste good. If you take the time, again, these things all take time. All of my meats are basically braised, so they're all slow cooked. That takes time. Again, if you commit to those certain principles, then like the end result's just gonna, it's gonna be good. So that's not done all the time, but it feels great to know that people enjoyed the simplicity of things too. Like, I think, again, in the culinary world, we can get very excited about putting a lot of things on a plate. For me, it's like in the case of this taco business, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Like, don't overcomplicate things,
Roundabout, how many recipes do you have?
Probably 40.
40?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, but not everything do I pull out all the time, And again, when you talk about minusing stuff, what I've realized is that there's certain things that I should just always be doing, and then other things maybe I'm tinkering, pulling something out that I haven't done in a long time. There's probably 40 things that I've made in the history of Grito. Do a lot of those appear nowadays? There's probably 10, 15 now. Certain things are just always crowd pleasers, though. The pork tacos or the brisket. Those don't ever get old. I always worry about people who have fad foods or something like that. Tacos never go out of style. They're always going to be a constant. They're kind of like in the hamburger pizza realm where, people just eat them it's like a daily fixture in some people's lives.
How about locations? Your locations have also always intrigued me too.
Yeah. We've done a lot of strange places.
You have, but they work again into the brand, at least from my perception as a consumer customer. This year, are you only focusing on Regent Street?
Only doing Regent, and that's kind of like where Grito is now as a business.
You were on Monroe Street briefly before the construction.
Yep.
Okay.
Did Strictly Discs, did their record thing. We also used to sell right in front of Shop Bop over there off Willie. We did lunches there. My ex-business partner and I, we were really into trying to find places that were untapped that we thought would be great locations. I don't know if Madison has a lot of those locations, sadly. I think if the city was to change like laws about vending in parks and things of that sort, I think they could probably create a lot of new opportunities for food carts and stuff. I think that was one of the things that was so really great about us right off the start, is that we went to places that weren't traditional. Barley Pop as well, setting up in front of there on Fridays. No one had been doing the food cart thing, food truck thing in front of these locations, or really for that matter any place in Madison. It was a really great time to explore that, and it still is. I think there's total untapped places out there. I wish I had more time and more arms. Yeah, but the Regent has become, that's home, Monday and Tuesdays. What I've realized in catering is you only have one opportunity to impress somebody, and so you have to be as good as you were last week, so that you can impress that person, because hopefully there's somebody here that they, that then says something good about you when you're not there. For me, I can safely say that's pretty much what we do right now. It's just word of mouth, and people find us if they want our services. That is a very great position of privilege to be in, and I understand that, and for me, I feel very lucky that I get to do what I do. It's something where I don't take it for granted, because I know that, you have to put out a good meal tomorrow as well. It's not just what you did yesterday.
You're in a good place. I mean, you're in a good place because you deserve it. You've put in the work and positioned yourself. And there's a donut shop on Monroe Street that's real popular called Bloom.
Yeah.
It's like there's always a line in the morning out there, and we're always usually in that line, my wife and I and my son, and we're like, I'm like, God, this is the best advertising, because look at all these streets down here, all these businesses, no one's waiting for the door open, and you're sitting here, you've got 50 people deep on a Sunday morning.
Totally.
Like, you're doing something right. So, and your cart's the same way. So that's just, I congratulate you. That's awesome.
Yeah. Again, like, I think if you've made it, I think I'm in year 6 now of the business. And if you think about that, I think of that as like, it's, restaurant years are dog years, so like you have to add a couple of years. Like, most don't survive past the first 2, right? Here I am now, so I know that I've got something that works. Not a lot of people are doing mobile dining, mobile food in Wisconsin in general. We have a short season. We have terrible winters. Like, it doesn't fit a lot of the molds of where other places have food trucks. So I can see why that's the case, but it also means that there's really great opportunity in that respect of, like, the mobile vending realm is, you can go anywhere, and there's so many different places, so many festivals in summer and everything like that, that still to this day it's an untapped market, and I can't tap all of it.
I was just going to say, yeah, you're only limited by time and effort and resources,
right,
and all that.
Yeah, exactly. Appreciate the kind words, though. It's been a lot of work, and so to get to this point.
And that's the way it is for musicians, artists.
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
You put the time in, and people see the lines, and they just think, oh, how do you get there? Well, a hell of a lot of work.
Right.
It didn't happen overnight.
Right. Selling a lot of tacos to a lot of different people, and making sure that some of them come back. If you're not ready to work when other people are chilling, then this isn't the industry for you.
Sources of inspiration. Can you dive into your vinyl quickly?
In my travels, one of the things that I've always loved to do is, collect records. Because I think, you could either collect rock or sand or postcards or, there's a million things you could collect. I've always thought music was a great reminder of the places that I've traveled. And again, living down in Argentina, really just, I fell in love with the music down there. Anyway, so some of these records are from, this is a record, and I'm going to play this for you a little later so we can hear this. But this is basically like the Velvet Underground from Argentina. It's a record, I actually can say you can try to Google this one. You can't find it on Google. But anyway, the reason I brought out 2 copies is because I've always wanted to just tell this story on camera. So I'm doing it.
Now is your time.
Yep. But so the reason I have 2 is because when I went down to Argentina the first time, which was 2007, I found this record and fell in love with it, and brought it back to the States, listened to it constantly, and I've just always said to myself, I want a second copy. Rarely do I ever say that. And so I went back to Argentina, and I was living down there again, and I was getting ready to leave, but I had found this one record store, and it was out in a far suburb. And every day I'd get on my bike, and I'd bike out there, probably about an hour one way, to this super far away suburb. And this old woman, her father had opened the store, and it was basically like an artifact store where there's just dust and everything. She hadn't done anything to it. And so it was just, again, if you're a record collector, you enjoy looking through things. You hope to find things new, discovery. I was looking for this record, this one. And I've been going there for almost 2 weeks already. And I mean, this is a very big record store. And I'm going through every single record in the entire store because I have the time to. I get to the bathroom. And above the bathroom is another set of records on this big sagging piece of wood, like the toilet's over here, records here. Get a ladder up there. Find it.
Wow.
And so, that's 7 years later or whatever, I find this record again. And again, it doesn't, it's not the greatest record ever. It's a cool piece. It's interesting. It's got some good songs. But it's about, again, it was the thrill of the hunt. sense of discovery, you know, all those things. And so
That's a good story.
it's a good story because
Yeah.
it's just like, you know, again, you know, you it's like finding a needle in the haystack, and you actually find it.
You get it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And you're like, that's something that's, you know, yeah, it's fun.
That's satisfying.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I'll be anxious to hear that. The takeaway though is that's sort of your postcard from where you travel.
Yeah,
That's
totally.
that's your little snow globe from each little destination. Yeah. So all of these records have a story, and each one's from a different basically destination you've been to. And that is really unique.
Right. And you know, again, like I didn't live there, but I traveled to Brazil and went to Rio de Janeiro and bought these fucking records there.
Yeah,
you know, and it's great.
It's really cool.
And, you know, this is a beautiful record, and it's an original pressing, and it's, you know, somebody listened to it on their stereo, and, you know, it has a little bit of a story before it got to me, you know, and I like that too.
It's a really good idea.
It's fun, and, you know, you learn so much about these places too, the pop culture of the day, what they were influenced by. You know, it's another great entry into like, what is this country about? And sometimes you connect really deeply about the music, and then sometimes you don't. But some countries are just batting above average. Brazil's batting way above average. So definitely one of the best countries of music ever, in my opinion. You know, yeah.
All right, so I think we're kind of brought up to real time, except I really want to find out what happened to you in the pandemic. How did you navigate these waters up till, let's just say, last month or late spring of this year?
I basically, in the end of 2019, 2020, I had fulfilled a lifelong dream of mine, which was traveling around the world. I had basically bought a 6-destination ticket to go to all these different places. And so I'm in Turkey, flying back on the 12th of March or whatever, and the world shuts down on the 13th. I'm coming back thinking that something's desperately wrong because Donald Trump had announced that borders were going to get closed, but he had neglected to mention that American nationals can come in, no problem. So I had bought a ticket coming back from Turkey. I was supposed to go to Ethiopia after that. I was going to continue to my final destination, Ethiopia, and so I ended up having to cancel that and just fly back direct to Chicago from Turkey. But I came back and didn't know really what was going to happen. You know, I came back, and then basically the 14th or something, you know, realized that everything's really different, and it only just got worse every day after that. I waited about a month and a half, I think, and then talking to another fellow food cart operator, he was really intent on the idea that you had to be out there, keep the brand alive. And you know what? I agree with him in that respect. I think trying to do something is admirable in a circumstance like that, so I did. And I made meal kits, you know, did those kind of things too. And it worked for a while. As much as it was great, and the support was just incredible. There's so much generosity, and like, you know, I sold out, you know, some weeks and stuff like that. You know, it was awesome. You know, when Madison likes something, they go in on it. It's just one of the, we should feel blessed we get to have a city that supports economies on the local scale. But I don't want to put things in boxes anymore. I didn't get into the food industry to do that either. And tacos require a lot of toppings. I did it, tried it, and it was great. I'm happy I did it because, again, it showed me that I can do anything, that I can pivot. You can still translate a little bit of your brand even in that way. I just don't want to try it again. You know, let us knock on wood that we get to continue on with this post-COVID world we live in.
So what are the takeaways for you from a business standpoint from the pandemic? I mean, what are you not going to do anymore? I mean, has it brought things into focus for you that, like, you look back on and you're like, yeah, I want to sort of move this way or that way or continue right down the road?
It made me certainly, the The pandemic obviously eliminated something that I had been doing and probably thinking that was going to happen for the rest of Grito. Its existence was doing the capital lunches. By April, that wasn't even going to be a thing. Everybody's at home. And then subsequently, all the law firms and everybody else have just basically left the capital too. So that's going to take, more than just a year for any of those office building workers to bounce back, let alone the real business. And it never was that great for me. It was okay. You're competing with 20 other food vendors. Eliminating daily vending has been the best thing that could have happened to me, because less is more. I've realized that a lot of the business I can handle myself. I always cooked the food pretty much, from the start. So, taking that on didn't seem like such a burden. I have new opportunities, and so I think probably going forward, I'll probably get another employee again. But like for the moment, I've realized that I can just do, things, do it myself, do private catering, and be a really sustainable business. If anything, it's taught us that the restaurant industry is a roller coaster. I work from the general principle that it will happen again, and in my lifetime. And many of the fundamentals of why I started my business in the first place, about like wanting to work for myself in the food industry, they're all still there. And again, if those don't fundamentally change, it's going to be hard to attract new people to the industry. We won't get to have those great creative outlets. Restaurants are creative outlets. They're not, that's part of why they exist in our societies, because they're creative places for people. You asked me about like slimming down the menu or whatever, but it's also why is it gets constantly changing, because it's like, then I get to do something different every day. It's a simple answer, but it's pretty much that. It means that I don't have to do the same monotonous thing. I want new people to be in this industry for forever, because I think it's a great place. You meet great people, you have probably more fun than almost any other kind of like industry. How many people get to actually enjoy what they do? But they should also be enjoying themselves, knowing that at the end of the day, they don't have to worry about their paycheck or like how they're paying rent. That's that part of it we have to address. Right. You want somebody who's like 14, like me, who's like, wow, they're, whatever. There's a bunch of loud, tattooed people on a line and yelling at each other. I want to be a part of that, At least I did in the 90s, I mean, it was engrossing, you want to be like part of that. You want people to be excited about that industry. You don't want it to just be thinking like, oh, it's something. And again, that's just the question that I think has to be dealt with collectively. And, again, pay equity and all those kind of things, tip sharing, like they've been tried, and then the pandemic hit and everybody put all this kind of stuff on pause. It's probably cliche, but it made everyone reassess, and again, if you're in the food industry, it was more so, because then you're asking yourself like, either what's it going to look like, or how do I really make it a viable option? And I was able to, over the pandemic, find a new home for Grito out in Cooksville. I was able to start leasing a kitchen space out there that I'm now, going to build out. And I'm really excited about that, because not only does it mean that Grito has a home permanently, basically, for it to, just be thriving as a business, but it also gives me like this entire new creative outlet to kind of, tap back into those, L'Etoile roots, and things like that stuff where like, that stuff still gives me great joy to cook those things. And I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, so definitely I'm charged. I realized over the pandemic there's a couple of things that I really love. One is travel. And I want to always be able to do that. And two, that that I'm capable of something else too. Like that maybe this is that option,
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. And then the final point on it is I feel like a lot of it, you feel sort of emboldened in a way, because you're like, wow, if I can survive this, I mean, you mentioned it a little bit ago. It's like, if we can survive this, we can pretty much tough anything out, right?
Yeah. Again, deal with some of those fundamental issues. But, again, think about what happened is that people were basically not told to go to restaurants, but then all those restaurants worked extra hard to put their best foot forward and give people something. over a course of a year. People like Tori at L'Etoile, they made just incredible meal kits for those people that were missing that fine dining experience. Or, again, like so many people tried to translate their aesthetic into bags and stuff, and then like it's so incredible. I think we'll look back on it and we'll say we can't believe we all did this. Maybe people are even saying that right now.
Yeah.
I feel like we've literally all just woken up from some kind of dream state in the last 2 weeks where we've taken our masks off, and I really actually, that's something that I also want to just have on the record too, is that it's like I hope that we do not forget what happened over the past year. It's so easy for us to forget and put these things past us. And again, we should in so many ways, but there is a lot that we uncovered about our country and ourselves. I'm excited because, again, people are going to always be making great food out there, and let's hope that more people want to open restaurants and do creative things out of them, because we all benefit. It only makes our city better. It only makes our lives better by having better places to eat at,
You mentioned the restaurant. So that's your next big project. Probably maybe your biggest project, right?
I'm giving myself a lot of responsibility and a lot of something to chew on.
What city is it in again?
It's not in a city. It's in
Okay.
an unincorporated township called Cooksville, Wisconsin. So it's between Evansville and Stoughton.
Interesting.
Yep. It's actually just in Rock County. I grew up in that area. Over the course of the pandemic, found out that there was an opportunity to start leasing it.
Wow.
And so this year, I started leasing it, and I've moved my entire business out there, and I work out of there 100%. Yeah, but still working out of Madison and servicing Madison.
But that's HQ.
But that is Grito HQ, and then hopefully by next year or something like that, there is a small restaurant that I'm going to be operating out of there maybe twice a month, doing special events, really heavy focus on wine and wine-focused meals and things of that sort.
Is it, what's the structure like? Is it anything
the building?
unique?
Yeah, the building is incredibly unique. The building is from 1846. It's actually the longest. It's like it was until I took it over, the longest running general store in the state. But it's a really old building from that time period. So it's got a lot of character. Floors that look like an ocean and a lot of creeks and stuff like that. But it's got good bones. And so, it's got a lot of character, which, again, I actually like in a space. Not everything's shiny.
So you were thinking of, making it available to the public 2022-ish?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think next spring I'm probably going to have my, I was hoping for this October, but the more I look at my calendar, the less I think that's a possibility. And I think that over the winter I'm going to probably have to put some work in on it. And then, I'm not going to do tons of stuff to the space, but enough to be able to host people. I want to work with a ceramicist and get some ceramic stuff made, custom pieces made or things of that sort. I have high and lofty goals on this place, and I don't feel the need to rush it.
But then as far as the menu, it's going to be an extension of what you're currently doing?
Oh, no, I'm thinking very different, actually. Okay. And I'm thinking...
Same name, though, correct?
No, I think we're actually thinking it's like a whole separate business,
deal.
Whole different entity. Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, as we were kind of talking about, like, Grito has such an established name, and it's got a great reputation, and I am very proud of that, and I want to keep going with that. But I think what I'm thinking for this space, it's going to be something different. Going to have maybe a more European influenced menu. Again, I cooked French food for some years. I enjoy that stuff. I also deeply enjoy Asian food. And, I think bringing in certain influences from those things, again, and then having how they work with wine. Again, I'm very interested in presenting a restaurant where people can have accessible glasses of wine or a pairing. Maybe they're getting to try things that only those other people get to try. But here at my place, which is far out of the city, which allows me a lot more, a different price point, maybe that's something that I can offer that excites people and there's a lot of people who are people into wine, but wine is not, sadly, an egalitarian thing at the moment. There's lots of great $10, $11 bottles, but we all do know that there's this other stuff too. Well, wouldn't it be great if you could, basically you're splitting the price with everybody in the room to try these great things
that ordinarily be out of reach.
Yeah. And again, so it's about, again, that means somebody who's really interested in wine can come and learn about things. And also, again, for me, it allows me to serve really cool things too. So, yeah.
Is this born out of the pandemic, this project?
Yeah, definitely.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's another example.
Yeah.
That's why we're doing this podcast. We're trying to figure out what people are doing now. That's pretty big.
It made me, again, I got into the food cart so I didn't ever want to open a restaurant. But when this opportunity came around, I said, this allows me, again, I don't have a financial pressure to open this place up tomorrow, Grito can be out of there, and that is its number one priority, is servicing that. Being able to move out there and actually have a business that's other than that could exercise my other creative impulses, that sounds pretty cool. And again, if I learned over the pandemic too that I love this industry. I love food, serving people, making people happy. It's pretty great, there's a lot of other jobs where people deal with people when they're not happy or, unpleasant things. I feel very lucky that I can engage in something like this. And so maybe this is a way to build on that. And so, it's super inspiring to see people who love the industry. Again, I my friend Evan, who runs Cadre, he loves what he does. It was tested over the pandemic, but, he also realized that this is what he loves to do. I think a lot of people learned that over the course of this year, is that you're going to figure it out if you like this industry enough. And again, there's a lot of people who walked away from it because it wasn't paying them enough either. And you know what? I understand that too. Totally. But for myself, again, it kind of solidified that I like doing it. And so, with this new space out in Cooksville, it's like, okay, well, you've done this for 6 years. Well, you have other stuff you're capable of, and it's not bad to have a little ambition in life. It's really not. We somehow we don't say that word enough. It's okay. It's not the worst thing. Shout out to these people, because I think they're just doing really interesting stuff. Is the American Wine Project. I think they're out of Mineral Point. They're making wines here in Wisconsin. Really difficult to do.
Yeah. Other than white wine and dessert wine. Yeah.
Again, I just, kudos to that, as a really interesting thing. I think that's probably one of the most interesting things I've seen recently. Maybe, next year or something, when I have the space ready to go, doing a collaborative dinner with them or something like that. Those kind of people are really inspiring me right now.
Nice.
So, yeah. A part of the menus that I'm planning at the place are definitely related to travel experiences too. Cooking stuff, using Argentine influences, or I'm deeply influenced by the country of Vietnam. I think Vietnam has just incredible food. It's very healthy actually, and use of herbs and fresh greens and stuff like that. Big inspiration. So definitely drawing upon all the places that I've been to with the meals and stuff that I develop out there. Music or whatever, sometimes you just need to stop and listen. Well, I've spent a lot of time listening in my travels, and I think I'm going to have a lot of food things to share with people, hopefully.
Nice. Along with the wine pairings.
Along with the wine. Of course, lots of wine.
It's going to work out.
Let us drink wine.